try to manage this all these situations. So hello, Rory Blair.
Hi.
Thank you very much for being here for this conversation. So you're based in the UK. Where are you exactly?
I'm in Cornwall. I'm in Falmouth in Cornwall. It's a lovely part. There's a lot of history here. A lot of old history here. It's a very old place.
You are from this area of England?
No, I grew up in London. I came here for university. But then I learned that actually my family going back were from Penzance, which is a bit further west. Out towards the end. Yeah.
So you live and you work here?
Yeah, I've been here for 9 years now, 9 or 10 years. Yeah. It's a lovely place to be. The air's clean. It's not London. There's a lot of green space.
Yeah. And so you are right now in your atelier?
I am, yeah. I've just got here this afternoon. It's looking very clean and empty at the minute. Because there's a lot more sitting down and thinking rather than doing right now.
Is it what you did during the confinement? You were mostly thinking?
I didn't come here for the first, I would say, month and a half, because I didn't have anything I could get on and do. I actually spent quite a long time doing some poetry. I've been doing a series of poems. They complement the photography. They speak in a similar kind of language, and they help. There's just another facet of the work that helps kind of build some kind of momentum or understanding, I guess. It all makes more sense the more of it there is together. Yeah.
So poetry is something that you do quite a lot as well?
No, it's quite a new thing for me. I just found myself writing down my thoughts, and then just kind of playing with words and trying to find a way of saying things without saying them directly. There's so much more that exists in what we can kind of adequately communicate, and actually I feel like there's more truth in those things that are just felt rather than explained.
Yeah, because you work in various media, so does it to have this different kind of media helps you to transmit your vision or your view on things?
Yeah, well, I suppose for me it's more trying to understand whatever it is I might be thinking. You know, there's something that I can't quite describe to myself, and the work becomes an exploration into that. It's for me to just kind of distill my experiences into something that makes sense to me, and then hopefully that can resonate in some way with the viewer. You know.
How do you get inspired? Where do you find your inspiration from?
Music, a lot of the time. Most of the time, it's music. I'm always building playlists that are soundtrack to my life at any given stage. They kind of set the mood. But all of my work comes as a kind of a response to my experience or a record of my experience. And then I kind of pour over the archive and pick out things that resonate with me or kind of open up a portal to something else that I think, I don't know, that I'm constantly trying to make sense of it all myself, really. They're all just quiet questions, really. There aren't any answers to it.
You told me that you had some hard time trying to put a pin on what your work is about. Do you think would it be important for you to really know what is it about?
No, I think there's a great strength in not being entirely sure what's going on, and I've embraced that unknowing or that level of ambiguity because it invites the viewer to project themselves onto the work. to gain their own understanding, and you know, they reveal a part of themselves to themselves, and that's a lot more interesting and exciting than me saying, hey, this is this, and everybody going, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's more of a communication there, or a sense of a communication. I think that's far more interesting. If somebody can get some kind of emotional reaction from it, I don't mind what that is, you know.
And you quite like to be experimental in your work.
Yeah, I'm spending a lot of time. Well, as I said, with it being a kind of direct response to my experiences, part of the experience of being alive today is this strange digital world that we've moved into. How we can be having this conversation, it just still baffles me. And photography is a very good analogy for that. We live our life through images, and we have a kind of clear distinction, or what we think is a clear distinction, between analog and digital photography. But when we layer the two, we actually arrive somewhere a lot more interesting, and we start to challenge the ways that we see and interact with the world. And so it's that intersection really interests me. What's changed or shifted or lost with each stage of representation. Yeah.
You started with photography. You started your practice with photography.
I started with photography. I just I fell into it. It was a way for me to record everything and make a sense of everything. I think I'm always the person that steps back and has a look around, and kind of watches what other people do. And so photography became a natural form of expression for me. And then I've always I spent years trying to break away from it. And no matter what I did, it always came back to photography, or it had a photographic element to it in some way. Some part of the process was inherently photographic, whether it was drawing or, like I was saying, the writing. The writings, they build to the same thing as the photography does ultimately. I think it's all speaking the same language.
Do you exhibit them together sometimes?
Yeah. I'm constantly trying to. It's much easier in kind of book format and in online, because there's always kind of, you know, captions that people can take loosely. I haven't fully figured out how to incorporate them in a gallery, because as soon as you have words next to images in a gallery, they're read more as a caption, and then they become an explanation for the work. But actually, they in their own way are another piece of work. Otherwise, there's that trade-off that always happens when words and images are together, that one's the explanation and one's the illustration. But I don't really want that to happen.
But maybe there would be a way to change that. No? Maybe you can imagine a new thing.
Hopefully I get to figure it out, or somebody else can figure it out for me.
Yeah. So as part of our virtual edition of Photo Basel, there's an impressive work that you did in 2019 in Grove Gallery booth. Could you tell us something about this particular work?
Piece of work that I have this year.
It's Polaroid's experience.
Yeah, it's called Doorways Like the Surface of Water, and it is a triptych of Polaroids of the last solar eclipse that we got to view here. And that in itself is such a cosmic, mythical thing. It stops everybody from doing what they're doing, and they're there witnessing it, and nobody can quite grasp what's going on. It's something that makes everybody realize that there's something much larger than ourselves, and it changes your perception of what's happening in front of you. And so I thought that's obviously a really exciting thing that kind of has to be documented. And then With those Polaroids, I then went about digitizing them and layering different techniques of digital manipulation where the process breaks down, to try and highlight that that kind of shift in our realities that we're overlaying. And the title's always like the surface of water. I've always been fascinated by the surface of water, and I've never really been able to grasp what it is. But it's just fascinating that there's these entirely different realities, and the surface of them is this micromillimeter that's both water and sky, and at the same time, neither of them. There's this intangible thing, and it's the bridge between two entirely separate realms, and that just fascinates me. That I think Bill Viola has done the best work on that, and it's something that's just felt. Like I say, it's less how it looked and more how it felt.
Mm-hmm. So you took many Polaroids from this moment, and then you only kept 3 to make this work?
No, those were the 3 I took. Those were the 3 I took, and then I wanted to try and make them work together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite interested in the limitations in things. You know, we can only get so far. We can only communicate so much, and we can only adequately represent something to a point until that breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always something that lies beyond. But I think we can all, you know, there's that saying, we are the universe experiencing itself. We're all a facet of it. And so inherently there's something within all of us that gives us the capability to just understand something, but it's not something we can put into words.
Mm-hmm. You have the feeling that step by step you understand new things. Your understanding of the world is changing.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's as you go along, you just realise at each stage that you know less and less and less. The more we look, the more we see, the less we know. Kind of where we're going. I feel like we invented the question mark, and then we throw it out there expecting answers, but they don't really exist because the questions are made up by us anyway. At a certain level, everything just is. But it's really interesting to ponder that and question. Questions are great. Questions are fun. They lead us somewhere. True. It might be further from where we want to be, but that doesn't, that's part of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the work we were talking about with the 3 Polaroids, there is one white square. It appears as a kind of question mark, actually. Yeah. Is it the free space so that we can also continue something? I mean, it leads.
Yeah. What else is there? Has it been taken away, or is there something still to add? Is that something for us to fill in individually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are the biggest challenges that you face in your practice? What would you say?
I would say distilling it down enough that what's the hardest thing? I think that the hardest thing is for me to have a sense of what I'm doing, or to relinquish that responsibility. Either way, I'm kind of I seem to always be caught in 2 minds as to what I'm doing and what I should be doing. I don't know if that's the right answer, but
for sure. Of course, it makes sense. Thank you very much, Rory.
Thank you.